So today we have to start activity types. But before starting activity types, we have to see some other functions. Right? See, for example, we have defined assessment cycle, distribution cycle, and production periodic reposting cycle, right? Then, if you remember, in every cycle, we have selected iterative checkbox. Say, for example, KSU2, controlling area AB18, cycle AB18A. See, in the assessment cycle, we have selected iterative checkbox. Similarly, in the distribution cycle and also in the periodic reposting cycle, we have selected iterative checkbox. So what is the impact of this iterative checkbox? Let us press F1. See, iterative processing. Iterative means repetitive, right? So this indicator controls whether iterative sender-receiver relationships are considered when the cycle is processed. The iteration is repeated until each sender is fully credited, and a small reminder may be left over in some cases. Means here, what is the repetitive sender-receiver relationships? Here, we have the two production cost centers, Department A and Department B. Then we have two service cost centers, Department C and Department D, right? So in this case, there is the reciprocal transfer of services between Department C and Department D. That is service cost centers, right? In that case, how the cost is allocated? We have done one method, repeated redistribution of overheads. So by selecting that iterative checkbox, the repeated redistribution of overheads is automatically taken care of by the system. Means, for example, right, we have the Department A, Department B, Department C, and Department D, out of which Department C and Department D are service cost centers. So here, Department C is giving services to Department D. Similarly, Department D is also giving services to Department C. In that case, how the cost is to be allocated? And these are the primary costs, right? Now, the cost of Department C is to be allocated 50% to A, 40% to B, then 10% to D. Similarly, the cost of Department D is to be allocated like 50% to A, 40% to B, and 10% to C. Then, how in this case, right, with this criteria, how the cost is allocated? Say, for example, first you take the cost of Department C. So how that is to be allocated? 50% to A means 500 to A, 40% to B means 400 to B, then 100 to D, 10% to D, right? Then the cost of Department C becomes 0 now. Now the total cost of Department D will be 600. So how the cost of Department D is to be allocated again? 50% to A means 300 to A, 40% to B, that is 240 rupees to B, again 10% to C. So C will get 60 rupees. Again, you take the 60 rupees and it is allocated 50% to A, 30 rupees, 40% to B, 24 rupees, and 6 rupees to D. Again, we take the 6 rupees, right? And that is allocated like Department A, 50%, 3 rupees, 40% to B, 2.4 rupees, then C, 0.60, 60 paisa. Again, you have to take the 60 paisa and you have to reallocate it. So here we are using percentages, right? So there is no ending process for this, right? That's why we can add 60 paisa here. Now the cost of Department C and Department D becomes 0. So this is called repeated redistribution of overheads. So by selecting this checkbox, right, the system automatically takes care of this repeated redistribution of overheads, right? Now, go back notes, please. Put heading. Default account assignment. It's very important function. Default account assignment. using this function, we can ensure that the postings to a particular cost element, we can ensure that the postings to a particular cost element is always posted to the required cost center. For that purpose, we can assign the cost center. For that purpose, we can assign the cost center in the cost element master record. As a result, at the time of posting to that cost element, the system automatically defaults. The cost center. But the user can change the default account assignment. At the time of posting also. Business example. The cost element 4,200,000. The cost element 4,200,000 is always to be posted to the cost center AB0200. Weekend batch students, yes, sir, 0200. Full stop. For that purpose, we can assign this cost center. In the cost element master record. 4,200,000. Procedure. Go to the transaction code KA02. Cost element is equal to 4,200,000. Click on enter. Click on default account assignment. Cost center AB02001. Click on save. See, from now onwards, when you're posting to cost element 4,200,000, the system automatically defaults that cost center. See, currency INR, posting key 40, the account is 4,200,000. Click on enter. See, cost center is automatically defaulted. But if necessary, we can change the cost center. In case if the cost element is to be posted to another cost center for the temporary time being, right? Then we can change the cost center. So this function is very, very useful in the real-time implementation projects. Say, for example, here you have 500 cost elements. You have the 500 cost elements, right? Then we have 150 cost centers. So at the time of posting to each of the cost elements, right, the user has to identify the respective cost center to which that cost element is to be posted from the list of 150 cost centers. Means he has to remember which cost element is to be posted to which cost center. Is it possible for anybody? No. That's why at the time of implementation itself, right, the CO consultant in consultation with the costing super users, costing department super users, they decide which cost element is to be posted to which cost center. Then in that cost element master record, they assign the respective cost. As a result, when you are posting to that cost element, system automatically defaults the cost center, right? Next, put heading. Processing of cost center master records. Processing of cost center master records. There are two ways. There are two ways to process the. There are two ways to process the cost center master records. There are two ways to process the cost center master records. Number one, individual processing. Number one, individual processing. In this case, we can process a single cost center at a time. We can process the single cost center at a time. The following functions are available. The following functions are available in the following path. Accounting, controlling, cost center accounting, master data, cost center, individual processing. Under that, write down like this only, right? KS01 create, KS01 create, KS02 change, KS02 change, KS03 display, KS04 delete, KS05 display changes. KS05 display changes. Means you can create a single cost center in the KS01. You can edit a single cost center. You can display a single cost center. You can delete a single cost center, and you can display the changes to single cost center. This is called individual processing, right? Next, number two, collective processing. collective processing. In this type, we can process a group of cost centers. In this type, we can process a group of cost center at a time. The following functions are available. The following functions are available under the following path. Accounting, controlling, cost center accounting, master data, cost center, collective processing. Cost center, collective processing. Under that, write down like this only. KS12 change, KS13 display, KS14 delete, KS07 rough entry, KS07 rough entry. Means here we can change a group of cost centers in the transaction code KS12. We can display a group of cost centers in the transaction code KS13. See, suppose I want to display all the cost centers, right? AB01001 to AB02003. Then click on execute. See, we can display all the 5 cost centers. Suppose I want to display, right, only production cost centers. In that case, you select cost center group, then enter your cost center group, AB18 PRO. Click on execute. Then the system will display only the cost centers which are assigned to this production group. So this is called collective processing, right? So what is this rough entry? Write down. Put heading again. Rough cost center. Rough cost center. These are the cost centers. These are the cost centers which are created in the rough entry screen. In the rough entry screen. That is KS07. That is KS07. That is KS07. These cost centers do not exist really. They exist only in the database. They exist only in the database. We cannot post the transactions. We cannot post the transactions to these cost centers. To these cost centers. They are used. They are used for validating the data. They are used for validating the data at the time of document entry. At the time of document entry. We cannot maintain the complete master data for the rough cost centers. We cannot maintain the complete master data for the rough cost centers. We can maintain only the following master data. We can maintain only the following master data for the rough cost centers. Number one, validity period. Number one, validity period. Number two, cost center ID. Description. Company code. And business area. That's it. So what is validations, right? This I will explain you later, right? Only for the purpose of validating the postings only, we use the rough cost centers when we don't implement cost center accounting, right? So what is this validation? We will discuss later. Now, activity types. Activity types are the activities which are carried on in a cost center. So in every cost center, right, we carry on different activities, right? The activities which you perform or which you carry on in the cost center is called activity types. We can measure the quantities of activity types. And these activity quantities are used to allocate the overheads in the cost center accounting and product costing. So how these activity types are used for allocating overheads in the product costing, we will discuss at the time of product costing. But we are in the cost center accounting now. So in the cost center accounting also, we can use this activity type to allocate the overheads. Generally, these activities are measured in terms of time or quantity. Means mission hour, terms of time, right? Labor hour, repair hour, setup hour, etc., etc. Then we can calculate the price per unit of each activity type. We can calculate the price per unit of each activity type. Examples are mission hour rate, labor hour rate, setup hour rate, etc. So we have to maintain a master record for each activity type in the cost center. Before that, we have to maintain a secondary cost element for each activity type and assign it in the activity type master record. Means, for example, we have the two cost centers, Department A and Department B, right? Then we have one training cost center. It's a service cost center, right? Now, the activity carried on in the training cost center is what? Training. So in this case, the training is called activity type. Now, with the training cost center, right, we have posted some expenses in the month of March. So we have paid the salaries to the trainers in the training cost center. So the salaries paid to these trainers is directly posted to training cost center, right? Then we have paid the rent for the premises of the training cost center. So like that, we identify number of expenses in the with the training cost center. Now, the total cost is 50,000 rupees. So the activity type that is carried on in the training cost center is training, right? So this training cost center has worked for 500 hours in the month of March. 500 training hours, please remember. 500 training hours. Say, for example, right, you have the 3 trainers, right? Each trainer has worked for nearly 175 hours, right? So 3 into 175, 525 training hours. So the total number of hours worked is 500 hours, which is called activity type quantity. And the cost is 50,000, right? So cost per hour you can calculate. Cost per hour is total cost divided by total number of hours worked, right? 50,000 divided by 500, which comes to 100 rupees per hour. Now, this training cost center has rendered its services to Department A 250 hours and the Department B 250 hours. Then the Department A is to be debited with 250 hours into 100 rupees. That is 25,000 rupees. And also Department B is also debited with 25,000. Now, in the Department A and Department B, this 25,000 is to be represented with the name training cost. And do we have any GL account with the name training cost? No. Again, the training cost is to be created as a secondary cost element with the category number 43. We have seen 42 assessment cost element, right? Now this is 43 category. So what is 43 category? Allocation cost elements. This category is used to allocate the overheads on the basis of activity quantities to the cost centers. So here we are allocating the training cost to the other cost centers on the basis of activity type quantities, right? So we have to create the secondary cost element again with the name training cost with the category number 43. So we have to maintain the master record for the activity type training. Before that, we have to create the secondary cost element with the category number 43, and that cost element is to be allocated. That cost element number is to be assigned in the activity type master record. Now, write one point here. We can carry on one activity type in one cost center. We can carry on one activity type in one cost center or multiple cost centers or multiple cost centers. Next point. We can carry on multiple activity types. We can carry on multiple activity types in one cost center. In one cost center. Okay. Now, here, this activity type quantities are used, right, to allocate the overheads from one cost center to another cost center, or to allocate the cost from one cost center to another cost center. Let us see how. Here we have one cost center, labor supply cost center, right? So with the labor supply cost center, we have incurred these expenses this month. Wages, 2 lakhs. Overtime wages, 1 lakh. Bonus, 35,000. Then labor welfare expenses, 25,000. So the total cost is 3,60,000. Now, in the labor supply cost center, there are 50 workers, right? Let us say each worker is working 3 shifts, just assumption. Nobody will work like that, just assumption, the example. So number of shifts working, 3. And number of working days in a month, 30. Number of working days in a month, 30, right? So the total number of labor hours, 50 workers, each worker is working 24 hours for 30 days. So total 36,000 hours, right? Then labor hour rate. We can calculate the labor hour rate. In the system also, we can calculate the labor hour rate, right? So the labor hour rate is total cost of the cost center divided by activity quantity. That is 3,60,000 divided by 36,000, which comes to 10 rupees. This we calculate in the system also. This is called labor hour rate, right? Then this labor supply cost center has supplied or it has rendered the services to production cost center A 25,000 hours, production cost center B 11,000 hours, right? And here we have already calculated labor hour rate, right? 10 rupees per hour. So production cost center A is posted with 25,000 hours into 10 rupees, 2,50,000. Then production cost center B is also posted with 11,000 hours into 10 rupees, 1,10,000. So 3,60,000. Now the cost of labor supply cost center becomes 0 on 31st March. That's how the activity types are used to transfer the cost from one cost center to another cost center. And also, right, it is used in the product costing also. Say, for example, allocation of cost of the cost center from the cost center, allocation of the cost from the cost center to production orders. Production orders means product costing. Say, for example, we have one production cost center, A, right? So in the production cost center, we have consumer raw material worth 1 lakh. Stores and spares, 1 lakh. Wages, 4 lakhs. Power, 3 lakhs. So total cost is 9 lakhs. So in this production cost center A, number of machines, 50. Number of plant and machinery is 50, right? Now, number of shifts working, 3. Each plant and machine works on 3 shifts. Then number of working days in a month, 30. Sorry, just a bit. Then total number of mission hours, activity quantity, right? Total number of mission hours is activity quantity, right? Then 50 into 24 into 30, 36,000 hours. And the total cost is 9 lakhs. So mission hour rate is total cost divided by total quantity. That is 9 lakhs divided by 36,000, which comes to 25 rupees per hour. This is called mission hour rate. Then in the month of March, you have completed 3 production orders in the department A. So this production cost center has spent 10,000 hours on the production order number 1, 20,000 hours on the production order number 2, and 6,000 hours on the production order number 3. Then the cost is allocated like this. Cost per hour 25 rupees, no. So production order is debited with 2,50,000. 10,000 hours into 25 rupees. Then production order number 2 is again debited with 5 lakhs. Then production order number 3 is debited with 1,50,000. That's how, right, the cost is allocated using the activity types, right? Then what is using the assessments, distributions, and periodic repostings also, we have allocated the cost, right? Then when do we use these activity types, right? Go back to page number 57. Okay, write down there. We use the activity types. To allocate the cost. Or overheads from one cost center to another cost center where it is possible to measure the quantities of activity types where it is possible to measure the quantities of activity types, both in the sender cost centers, and receiving cost centers, right? Then only we use the activity types, right? Otherwise, right, we use either assessment or distribution or periodic repostings based on the client requirement. Now, when you implement activity types, the planning is a little bit different. Planning for the cost centers. There are two types of planning for the cost centers. Number one, activity independent planning. Number two, activity dependent planning. See, activity independent planning and activity dependent planning. So what do you mean by activity independent planning and activity dependent planning? Activity independent planning. We enter the planned values both for primary cost and secondary cost at the cost center level. Means for the entire cost center, you enter the planned values for primary cost limits and secondary cost limits. It does not refer to any specific activity. And we can enter planned values only for the fixed cost. And the planning is done at the cost center level. But in the case of activity dependent planning, we can enter the planned values both for primary cost and secondary cost for each specific activity in the cost center. See, here, in the case of activity independent planning, the planned cost is entered at the cost center level for each cost element. But in the case of activity dependent planning, the planned values are entered at the activity level, at the activity type level in each cost center. That means we have the department A cost center, right? And we have salaries, wages, and rent. So we are entering the planned values for these three cost centers, right? Now, in the department A also, we are carrying three activities. I told you, we can carry on multiple activities in the cost center. So activity type 1, activity type 2, activity type 3, right? Now, in the case of activity independent planning, So, planned cost is entered at the cost center level. Means for entire cost center, we enter the planned values like salaries, 2 lakhs, wages, 1,75,000, rent, 1 lakh. So this is for the entire cost center level, right? So at the cost center level, you enter the planned values, right? Then in the case of activity dependent planning, in the case of activity dependent planning, right? The planned cost is entered at the activity type level. That means, see, suppose for example, at the cost center level, the total salaries are 2 lakhs, right? Then, in the case of activity independent planning, department A, in the department A, activity type 1, how much salaries? $50,000. Then department A plus activity type 2, 1,25,000. Then department A activity type 3, 25,000. Clear? What is the difference between activity dependent planning and activity independent planning? So in the case of activity independent planning, you enter the planned values for each cost element at the cost center level. But in the case of activity dependent planning, the planned values are entered at the activity type level. Clear for everybody?
Yes, sir.
Then, in the case of activity independent planning, we can enter the planned values only for the fixed cost. Then, in the case of activity dependent planning, we can enter the planned values both for fixed cost and variable cost. And the planning is done at the specific activity level. But here, planning is done at the cost center level. Now we will see the configuration. Activity independent planning. Activity independent planning. So, I am going to show you the calculation of price per unit of activity type, both in activity independent planning and activity dependent planning. So first we have to create one secondary costing. We have to create 1 second, just a minute. Yeah. Now, creation of secondary cost element, KA06. Cost element is equal to 10 lakhs. Just let us use one distinctive number. Cost element is equal to 10 lakhs. Valid from 1/4/2024 to 31st December 9,999. Click on enter. Name is equal to labor supply cost. Name is equal to labor supply cost. Description also labor supply cost. Description also labor supply cost. Cost element category. See 43. Internal activity allocation. Cost element category is equal to 43. Yeah, it is there. Internal activity allocation. Click on save. Now, one step is missing there. Write down here. Write one vertical line. Oh, it is there. It is there. No, not necessary. Now, creation of activity type, KL01. Creation of activity type, KL01. The activity type is equal to AB18A, just like that. The activity type is equal to AB18A. Weekend batch students, SS27A. Valid from 1/4/2024 to 31st December 9,999. Click on enter. Name is equal to labor supply activity. Name is equal to labor supply activity. Description is also labor supply activity. Activity unit. So how do we measure this activity type? Labor hours, right? So number of hours. H. See, this unit of measurements were already defined in the system. H. Hour. The activity unit is equal to H. Within brackets, number of hours. Then cost center category is equal to asterisk. All types of cost center categories. Means this activity can be carried on in all the cost center categories. Then activity type category. 1. Manual entry, manual allocation, right? Write one vertical line here. Write down. The activity type category. Here, activity type is there, right? The word category is missing. Please add it. Activity type category. The word category is missing. Please add the category. The activity type category controls. No. Don't say controls. The activity type category determines. The activity type category determines how the activity quantities, are maintained in the receiving cost centers and sender cost centers. In the receiving cost centers and the sender cost centers. And how the allocation of the cost is done. How the allocation of the cost is done. How the allocation of the cost is done among the cost centers. The activity type categories. Are system defined. The activity type categories are system defined. See, activity type category 1, right? Manual entry, manual allocation. Means the activity quantities are entered in the senders and receivers manually, and the allocation is also done manually. Other things also we'll see later on, right? Manual entry, indirect allocation, etc. For the time being, I am using this activity type category 1. Then allocation cost limit, 10 lakhs. I told you, no? The allocation cost limit is to be assigned in the activity type master record. Then price indicator. Price indicator 1. Price indicator 1. Price indicator 1. I will explain you what is this. Price indicator 1. Then here you add one word before this. Actual activity price indicator is equal to actual activity here. Actual activity price indicator is equal to 5. 5 within brackets. Do one thing. Price indicator 1 you have written, right? Within brackets, planned price automatically based on activity. Planned price automatically based on activity. I will explain what is this. Then actual activity price indicator. No, just a minute. Activity type 1, allocation cost element, then price indicator, then actual activity price indicator 5 within brackets, actual price automatically based on activity. Okay, then actual activity type category. You add one more field, actual activity type category. One within brackets, manual entry, manual allocation. Manual entry, manual allocation. Click on save. See, activity type has been created. Now, here, what is this price indicator? Right? This will explain you after 10 minutes break. Okay. So I'll be back in 10 minutes. Yes, I am back. Now, what is this price indicator? Write down here. For each activity type, we can calculate the actual price and the planned price. For each activity type, we can calculate the actual price and the planned price. The price indicator controls how the planned price and actual price is calculated. The price indicators are system defined. The price indicators are system defined. See, here there are three types of price indicators for planned price and actual price. Suppose if you take the planned price indicator, we have three indicators. Three price indicators. See, one, planned price automatically based on activity. Two, planned price automatically based on capacity. Three, determined manually. That means here, planned cost, say 2 lakhs, right? Then installed capacity is 20,000 hours per month. Okay. But normally we cannot achieve the installed capacity, right? So this month we planned that we can use 16,000 hours, right? We can work for 16,000 hours and your planned cost is 2 lakhs. Okay. Now, if you take the planned price indicator, planned price automatically based on activity means indicator 1, right? Means what? Planned price automatically based on activity. That means 2 lakhs divided by 16,000 hours. 16,000 hours. That means 2 lakhs divided by 16,000 hours, which comes to 12 rupees 50 paisa. 12 rupees 50 paisa. Suppose if you take 2 means planned price automatically based on capacity. That means, 2 lakhs. What is that installed capacity? 20,000, right? Which comes to 10 rupees. So if you use the third indicator, manual determined for the planned allocation, means you enter manual price, right? So here, if you use indicator 1, right, it is the most effective price. But if you use 2, it leads to under absorption of the cost. That's why, again, either in the actual price and the planned price, we go for, right, indicator 1 only. Similar is the case in the case of actual price, right? So actual price divided by planned activity, actual price divided by capacity, or manually entered. So both. In the case of planned price indicator, we use 1. In the case of actual price indicator, we use 5. Next. Creation of cost center. Within brackets, labor supply cost center. Transaction code KS0. Cost center is equal to AB02004. Even weekend evening, SS02004. Yeah, Enjarappa.
Sir, no, master data, activity master data, there are checkboxes, right? 4 checkboxes. In
Sorry?
allocation structure. In the activity type master data, we have a 4 checkboxes, right? Planned set and actual set type. So, what is the
Your
use
voice
of
is a
this?
little bit shaking.
Sir? Hello?
Wait. Tell me.
Sir, here these are in allocation default values. There are actual quantity set and planned quantity set and pre-distributed fixed cost. What is the use of this? Sir?
We will discuss, right? At the time of allocations, we will discuss. They will be discussed
Okay, sir.
eventually. Okay.
Okay. Sir, cost center categories means we can use for any particular cost center, right? Instead of all cost
This
center.
activity type can be performed in all the cost center categories, whether production cost center categories,
Okay.
service cost center categories, everything.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Now, creation of cost center, labor supply cost center. KS01. So cost center is equal to AB02004 and weekend batch students SS02004. Valid from 1/4/2024. Click on enter. Name is equal to labor supply cost center. Description also. Labor supply cost center. Person responsible A. Cost center category 9. Allocation cost centers. Cost center category 9. Allocation cost center. Hierarchy area AB02. Business area AB18. Currency INR. Click on save. Ignore the warning message. Then creation of cost center group KSH1. Cost center group is equal to AB18 underscore PROD. Sorry. AB underscore LBR. Labor supply cost centers. Cost center group is equal to AB18 underscore LBR. Click on enter. Description. Labor supply cost centers. Click on insert cost center. Cost center is equal to AB02004. Click on insert cost center. Write down. One field is missing there. Cost center is equal to AB02004. Click on save. Just Now, planning cost center wise, within brackets, activity independent planning. Transaction code KP06. Transaction code is missing. Add the transaction code KP06. Version is equal to 0 from period 12 to period 12, fiscal year 2024, cost center AB0 to 004, weekend batch students SS0 to 004. Now you write down, remove group and activity type if defaulted. Remove group and activity type if defaulted. Cost element is equal to 4,100,000. Cost element is equal to 4,100,000. See, we are entering the planned values for the salaries for this cost center. Activity independent plan. Select form based. Click on overview screen. See, planned fixed cost is just like that. I am entering 7,20,000. So, planned cost is 7,20,000. Now, planning activity hours, KP26. Version is equal to 0 from period 12 to period 12, fiscal year 2024, cost center AB0 to 004, activity type AB18A. So in this cost center, this activity type is expected to be carried on for how many number of hours? Planned quantity of activity type. Select form based. Click on overview screen. Plan activity 72,000 hours. Click on save. So planned quantity 72,000 hours. Planned cost 7,20,000. Then cost per hour will be 10 rupees. That has to be calculated in the system. So plan activity price calculation, KSPI. Cost center group is equal to AB18 underscore LBR. Cost center group is equal to AB underscore LBR. Version is equal to 0 from period 12 to period 12, fiscal year 2024, set test run, select detail lists. Click on execute. See, price fixed means in the case of activity independent planning, we can enter the planned values only for the fixed cost, right? So fixed cost per hour 10 rupees. Click on save and enter. So this is how we calculate the planned price per activity type unit in the activity independent plan. Then activity dependent plan, right? So for the same cost center, right, I am calculating again price per unit of activity type under the dependent planning. So planning cost center wise, KP06. See, in the case of activity dependent planning, you enter the planned values in the cost center at the activity type level. Okay. So version is equal to 0. Version is equal to 0. From period 12 to period 12, fiscal year 2024, cost center AB0 to 004. After that, write down, remove the group if defaulted. Remove the group if defaulted. Activity type AB180A. So in the activity independent planning, we did not enter the activity type, right? But now we are doing the activity dependent planning. So planning depends on activity. So we are entering in this cost center for this activity. Cost element is equal to 4,100,000. Select form based. Click on overview screen. See, in the case of activity dependent planning, we can enter the planned values both for fixed cost and variable cost. That's why these two fields are ready for input, right? So just like that. Planned fixed cost is 1,44,000. Planned variable cost is 5,76,000. I have pre-calculated these values. Click on save. Then planned activity hours, KP26. Version is equal to 0 from period 12 to period 12. Fiscal year 2024. Cost center AB0 to 002. Activity type AB180A. Select form based. Click on overview screen. Right now, observe that plan activity 72,000. Right now, observe that plan activity 72,000 hours is defaulted because we maintain the planned quantity of activity type. We maintain the planned quantity of activity type in the activity independent planning. In the activity independent planning. So,
Sir, pardon, sir. Is defaulted because we maintain the
planned quantity
planned quantity
of activity type in the activity independent planning.
Okay.
So it's not necessary to enter again. So it is not necessary to enter again. Click on save. Now, activity price calculation, KSPI. Cost center group is equal to AB18 underscore PROD. I'm sorry, LBR. Labor supply cost centers. No? Version is equal to 0. Period is equal to 12 to 12. Fiscal year 2024. Select test run. Select detail lists. Click on execute. See, total price 20, price fixed 12 rupees. What do you mean by this? Here, for one cost center, you have calculated price per unit, both in the activity dependent planning and activity independent planning, right? So in activity independent planning, right, we can enter only, planned values only for fixed cost, right? So fixed cost is 7,20,000 divided by 72,000 hours, right? That is 10 rupees. Okay. Then for the same cost center, right, in activity dependent planning, we can enter the planned values for fixed cost and variable cost, right? Now, fixed cost, how much you entered planned? 1,44,000, right? So 1,44,000 divided by 72,000 hours, right? 10 rupees fixed cost. Here it is 2 rupees fixed cost in the case of activity dependent planning, right? So total cost, fixed cost is 12 rupees. That is what is displayed here. Total price 20 rupees, right? Because 10 rupees in activity dependent planning and 10 rupees in the activity independent planning. So total price is 20 rupees, out of which fixed price is 12 rupees, right? Then remaining is variable cost. So we entered the variable cost 5,76,000, right? So 5,76,000 divided by 72,000 hours. That is 8 rupees. So fixed cost is 12 rupees, variable cost is 8 rupees, total price 20 rupees. That's how you have to interpret the activity prices here. Now the question is, how these activity prices are used, right? In the allocation of overheads. That we will see in the next class. This is called activity allocation, right? So from tomorrow onwards, right, weekend batch students, I request you to attend daily 7:30 a.m. Indian time, right? I request all the weekend batch students to attend daily 7:30 a.m. also, right? So that we can complete fast. So here, I will send you the separate link, okay? I'm talking about only to the weekend batch students. In case if you cannot attend, right, immediately I will be sending the recording within 1 hour of the completion of the class. You can download it and you can listen to it and get ready for yourself next class, okay? And daily morning batch, you have to use the previous same link only. But for the weekend batch students, I will send you the separate link. So any questions from anybody?
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, every month activity starting from accounting, that is, it is a end user role or configuration
End user
or
role only. Calculation of activity price is end user role. Entering the planned values also entering end user role. Entering the planned quantity of activity types also end user role.
So up to what point it is the role of the consultant?
See, creation of activity types is the end user consultant role.
Okay.
So at the time of implementation, right, the consultant will create all the activity types. In case if there is a need to create new activity types after implementation, they are done by end users only. That's why
Okay.
path, if you notice, the path starts from accounting also.
Sir, sir,
Yeah, Ganeshan.
yeah, in financial modeling, how do you attach invoices for vendors or customers? How do you attach invoices in the entry? When you're doing journal entry, customers send invoices. How do you attach it? Is there any option to attach the invoices?
Yeah. There is an option, right? I will let you know tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
I forgot where that option is available. I will let you know.
Okay.
And I request everybody, weekend batch students also to attend the morning also. I will send the separate link. In case if you cannot attend, I will send the recordings immediately, right? And you can download it, listen to it and do the practice. Okay, then see you all tomorrow morning, Indian time, 7:30 a.m.